Good afternoon, everyone. Um, Hello, viewers. This is Dr. Aparna. I am your emotional healing synergist. I am an Ayurvedic psychotherapist, a passionate infopreneur, edupreneur, and medical writer. I am on my pursuit to address, promote, and propagate Ayurveda and psychotherapy globally. In this discourse, every week we have a new topic of discussion on Ayurveda, mental health, or psychotherapy. Today's topic of discussion is cognitive psychology. I know this topic of discussion is requested by the psychology students. Today's topic of discussion is especially for psychology students and psychology enthusiasts or science graduates and all for all the viewers. And let's get started. So, what is cognitive psychology? So, cognitive psychology is a branch of psychology which deals with thinking. Cognitive psychology is the branch of psychology dedicated to studying how people think. The cognitive perspective in psychology focuses on how the interactions of thinking, emotion, creativity, and problem solving abilities affect how and why you think the way you do. So, what is the cognitive perspective in psychology actually focuses on how the interactions of thinking, emotions, creativity, problem solving abilities affect how and why you think the way you do. So basically, cognitive psychology involves the study of internal mental processes, that is, all of the workings inside your brain, including perception, thinking, memory, attention, language, problem solving, and learning. So, cognitive psychology is the study of how people think and process information, and this helps researchers understand the human brain. So, cognitive psychology was developed to understand the human brain, how the study of how people think and process the information. Basically, it is this. Cognitive psychology also allows psychologists to help people deal with psychological difficulties. That is, by examining the cognitive processes involved in these activities, cognitive psychologists help us gain a deeper understanding of how the brain functions or how the brain works. So, cognitive psychology definition. What is the actual definition of it? The definition of cognitive psychology is deceivingly simple. Cognitive psychology is defined as that branch of psychology devoted to studying mental processes. What may not be so easy to grasp, though, is how many different types of mental processes are there and how people use them in unique ways to draw conclusions and make decisions. So, thus, cognitive psychology can encompass a very broad range of subjects. So, it is not easy to grasp that how many different types of mental processes are there, how people use them in unique ways, because we are all unique. The way a person, an individual thinks is very different from another individual. So this to draw conclusions and make decisions, no, it may not be so easy, but the cognitive psychology encompasses a very broad range of subjects. That means cognitive psychology, if I have to give examples, cognitive psychologists study the mental processes of humans. This includes activities like, what do they study? like problem solving, informational processing, short term memory, language processing. They also investigate the effects of emotions on our behavior and how we can improve our mental processes through behavioral psychology. So, what are these mental processes? So, I'm talking about mental processes, mental processes. So, what are they? Thinking, reasoning, judgment, attention, mental imagery, language processing, recognizing numbers, memory, perception, creativity, forming concepts, making decisions, problem solving, making choices, metacognition is a branch where you think about your thinking. Okay, am I thinking correct? How am I thinking? Metacognition is a field where a person analyzes his or her own thinking. So thinking about your thinking. So all these aspects are studied under cognitive psychology. All these mental processes: thinking, reasoning, judgment, attention, mental imagery, language processing, recognizing numbers, memory, perception, creativity, forming concepts, making decisions, solving problems, making choices, and metacognition. So, an important thing to remember about cognitive psychology is that it isn't just about the thoughts you have, but also about how those thoughts can impact your behavior. So, whatever thoughts we have, those thoughts can impact our behavior. That is cognitive psychology. See, cognitions or thought processes are what happens to you between perceiving something with your senses and behaving outwardly in response. They can also happen without a sensory stimulus. So, an example of sensory stimuli leading to behavior via a thought process might happen if you step outside on a winter day and feel the cold wind on your face. There is a For example, there is a sensory stimuli is whatever you experience. A thought process, see, when you step out on a winter day, imagine you're stepping out on a winter day and you feel the cold wind on your face. You just step back and put a scarf. The time between the feeling of coldness and the behavior of putting on a scarf is a thought process. So you feel that, oh, okay, I'm feeling cold, and I have to prevent myself. You either put a scarf, or you either carry an umbrella suspecting a rainfall or something. So this entire thing, that means the time between the feeling of coldness and the behavior of putting on a scarf is a thought process. Maybe you will be more comfortable if you wrap up a bit. Whatever that thought is, you allow it to change your behavior. That thought of feeling cold and to protect will change your behavior. So, no matter how the thought process works, it's always changing and can lead to different behaviors from a previous experience. So, it's important to identify and understand these examples of cognitive processes to understand how to make better decisions. So, why are we doing this? Why am I studying cognitive psychology? Or if you ask, why should you study cognitive psychology? It is because you have to know to how you have to understand how to make better decisions, how to respond, you know. So what is metacognition? I talked about metacognition. Metacognition is a process when a person thinks about his thinking. So, cognitive psychology is based on thinking about the thoughts people have and how they influence behavior. So it's a form of metacognition or thinking about thinking. There are several other interesting examples of metacognition that have fascinated people throughout history. So, when people were understanding metacognition, it was a fascinating thing. So, how to think about your thinking, knowing that you are thinking about your thinking itself is a fascination. So, if you feel as if you are repeating an experience, you sense a deja vu. So, if you have thought that your belief is unique, what you believe is unique, and find out that it's a memory of something you read, heard, saw, you have cryptomnesia. So, if you write it down, you might plagiarize unconsciously. That means if you the thing is something, if you that you have heard or you have visualized or you have experienced those things, what happens, or you have heard it repeatedly, heard it or listened to it again and again, what happens is it is stored in your memory, and the next time it happens, it is already with you, that what you have to do, no, what your behavior should be. Even before that thought hits, the behavior is already, kind of manifested. So, and next is the topics in cognitive psychology. So, what are the topics psychologists explore in cognitive psychology? Cognitive psychologists explore a wide variety of topics related to thinking processes. So, what is that? Attention. So, our ability to process information in the environment while tuning out irrelevant details. Choice based behavior, actions driven by a choice among other possibilities. And decision making, as I already said, that decision making, you can make better decisions if you understand what cognitive psychology is. And forgetting, and people have short term memories and problems with memory. So it deals cognitive psychologists also explore in this manner. And information processing, how does a person processes the information, language access, acquisition and processing, how we learn to read, write and express ourselves. And problem solving, and also speech perception. So people, many people, in children as well, they have problems with their speech. Through cognitive psychology, we process that as well. So visual perception, and how we see the physical world around us. So attention, choice based behavior, decision making, memory, that is forgetfulness and etc., information processing, language acquisition, memory, problem solving, speech perception and visual perception. So, having said that, what does a cognitive psychologist actually do? So, cognitive psychologists do clinical research, training, education, and clinical practice. They use the insights gained from studying how people think and process information to help people develop new ways of dealing with problem behaviors and live better lives. So, what they do is they use the insights gained from studying how people think and process information to help people develop new ways of dealing with problematic problems and problematic behaviors and live better lives to make their lives better. So, cognitive psychologists have special knowledge of applied behavior analysis, behavior therapy, learning therapy, and emotional processing theories. So, for the students who have doubts on what does a cognitive psychologist do, if you happen to be one, or if you want, if you are aspiring to be one, so they know how to apply this knowledge to the human condition and use it in the treatment of. So, how can it be used in application, like how can it be practically applied? So we use cognitive psychology in anxiety disorders, academic performance, in improving academic performance, in substance abuse, in personality disorders, in depressive disorders, in relationship problems and concerns, in autism and spectrum disorder, in trauma, that is post traumatic stress disorders and stress, and in emotional regulations. So, we use it in many of the mental conditions like anxiety. We can improve academic performances, and in personality disorders like schizophrenia and bipolar disorders, in substance abuse like alcohol abuse and drug abuse, in depressive disorders, in relationship concerns, in autism and autism spectrum disorder, in trauma, that maybe childhood trauma or post traumatic stress disorder, or in the emotional regulation. So, if I have to talk about the history of cognitive psychology, how did cognitive psychology come into existence? So, cognitive psychology gained popularity in the 1950s and 1970s as the researchers became more interested in how thinking affects behavior. This period is called the cognitive revolution and represented in a shift in thinking and focus for psychologists. Before this time, the behaviorist approach dominated psychology. The behaviorists only studied external behavior that could be measured. The cognitive approach gave rise to the idea that internal mental behavior could be studied using experiments. What it did was, in 1950s to 1970s, in between this era, researchers become more interested in knowing how thinking affects behavior. This period was called cognitive revolution, and it represented a shift in thinking and focus of psychologists. Before this time, behaviorist approach dominated psychology. So, what did the cognitive approach gave rise to? It gave rise to the idea that internal mental behavior could be studied using experiments. Cognitive psychology assumes that there is an internal process that occurs between when a stimulus happens and when you respond to it. As I said, when you're going out on a winter day and you have a sensory stimuli of a windy breeze on your face, then what you do is you go inside the house, you bring a scarf, you bring an umbrella, you try to cover yourself because it is. And in between this stimuli and action, cognitive psychology assumes that there is an internal process. So that goes on. It may be in milliseconds, but there is an internal process. These processes are called mediational processes and can involve memory, perception, attention, problem solving, or other processes. So what happens is, you feel maybe in the past you have been drenched in the rainfall, or a winter could have affected your health. So what you do, you recollect that memory, bad memory, or it might happen to your relatives as well. It is not that everything happens to you only. So if that happens, the next time it happens to you, it triggers. So these are called the mediational processes. So what happens is, it involves memory, perception, attention, problem solving, and other purposes. So cognitive psychologists believe if you want to understand behavior, you have to understand the mediational processes that cause it. So, cognitive psychology examples. So, some example of the studies and work in cognitive psychology. So, what are they? Expert think differently. So, beginners think literally when they try to solve a problem. That is, a beginner solving a problem. When you are a beginner and trying to solve a problem, and when you are expert in that field and you're trying to solve a problem, the thinking differs. That means they tend to focus, the expert tend to focus on the focus on the surface details when they are presented with unfamiliar solutions. Beginners, what they do, They focus on the surface details. It is the first time for them, and the experts are able to see the underlying connections or the root causes and think of the problem more abstractly. So what they're trying to say is, expert think more abstractly and deeply, and the beginners think the problem take the problem in a superficial manner. So, and second thing is short term memory. So your short term memory is probably a lot shorter than you think. A classic study in cognitive psychology found that participants in a study could recall only 10% of the random three letter strings, and after 18 seconds, after 3 seconds, the participants could recall 80% of the letter strings. So there was a significant drop of 15 additional seconds. What they say is, sometimes what happens is short term memory, a short term memory is actually much shorter than what we think. There was a study conducted where they couldn't retain information. So this also helps, the cognitive psychology also helps to develop, improve your short term memory to long term memory. Studying cognitive psychology helped researchers and mapping the brain. Some cognitive psychologists are working on the brain research through advancing innovative neurotechnologies. BRAIN, brain. So that is brain research through advancing innovative neurotechnologies. This was an initiative. So this project has been compared to the Human Genome Project. So it's an attempt to learn about the 100 billion brain cells, including the connections between them and how they relate to behavior and health. So cognitive psychology is completely about the study of the thought processes and the resultant behaviors. And some of the other applications of cognitive psychology. Cognitive psychology has been applied to many other aspects of psychology. Many psychologists who do not call themselves cognitive psychologists still use cognitive approaches to a wide range of psychological problems. So here are some examples. See, depression. As I said, depression. In depression also, like, antidepressants are commonly used to improve the mood of the people with depression. However, most psychiatrists suggest the patients also have counseling along with their medication to develop positive patterns of thought and behavior. Otherwise, when they are taken off the antidepressants, they may quickly return to their depressed state. This They may be able to avoid this if they change the way they think about and respond to their feelings of depression. So one is depression. Next is aggressive and antisocial behavior. Cognitive psychology has produced, several different social information processing models. So these are the models of how people think and behave in response to others. As it turns out, this is actually helpful in children, the aggressive behavior and the antisocial behavior. Children who developed the ability to process social information can become adults who have in more socially acceptable ways. So what it does is, introducing cognitive psychology, studying and introducing it from the childhood, helps children, process social information more in a more abstract manner, in a more deep manner, and then behave. So how do we use cognitive strategies in learning? So there are many of our students watch this. So whether you are a college student or just an adult who enjoys learning, using the right cognitive strategies can help you comprehend and remember information more accurately. There is a limited capacity for what we can recall, but cognitive strategies can help us process information in greater depth and influence our long term memory. These strategies may help you understand the material more efficiently and enhance your memory. So cognitive strategy can help you comprehend more efficiently, comprehend the concept and enhance your memory. So it converts short term memory to long term memory. So some of the cognitive strategies you can use: summarizing or annotating readings, predicting outcomes, and reflecting on what you have learned. So to even to recall and recollect the or revise the learned information, cognitive strategies can help. So what are the overall benefits? I will also talk about methods in cognitive psychology. Before that, understand yourself and others on a deeper level. So and learn more efficiently, make healthier life choices, change unwanted behaviors, diminish more problems, understand past traumas differently. You know what, when you actually use cognitive strategies, psychological strategies, you understand your past traumas, you think about it, and you comprehend it in a different way. Recall eyewitness testimony more accurately, remember past experiences and put them in perspective with your current life. So this is a recap. Cognitive psychology is a branch of psychology that focuses on understanding mental processes such as perception, attention, memory, language, problem solving, and decision making. It examines how individuals acquire, process, and use information, and how these cognitive processes influence behavior. So, methods in cognitive processes. What are the methods used? What are the methods the researchers used? So, experimental studies they do. They do observational studies. They do neuroimaging techniques. That is EEG, or EEG, that is electroencephalography, and fMRI, that is called functional magnetic resonance imaging, and computer based modelings. So this is like, these are the techniques used. I'll talk about the technique in detail in my next session. So coming to the benefits, after you apply these, what are the actual benefits? Like understanding mental processes, I have already talked about. That is, it helps us comprehend the underlying cognitive processes involved in everyday activities such as learning, problem solving, and decision making. And the practical application is cognitive psychology has a practical application in education, therapy, that is psychotherapy, and human computer interaction in the AI as well. By understanding cognitive processes, educators can design effective instructional strategies, therapists can develop interventions for cognitive disorders, and designers can create user friendly interfaces and technologies. So, improving memory and learning. Cognitive psychology offers insights into memory processes and effective learning strategies. By understanding how memory works, individual can employ techniques to enhance memory encoding, storage, and retrieval. That is input, processing, and output. That is how to enhance memory encoding, storage, and retrieval. This knowledge can improve academic performance and lifelong learning. So, problem solving and decision making. Cognitive psychology provides insights into problem solving strategies and decision making processes. It helps individuals develop effective problem solving techniques, overcome obstacles, and make better decisions by considering relevant information and avoiding cognitive biases. So, enhancing cognitive skills. Cognitive training programs based on principles from cognitive psychology aim to improve cognitive skills such as attention, working memory, and cognitive flexibility. These programs are used in cognitive rehabilitation, sports training, and professional development to enhance cognitive performance. So, informing mental health treatments, cognitive psychology has influenced therapeutic approaches such as cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy addresses cognitive distortions and helps individuals develop healthier thought patterns and coping strategies. By understanding cognitive processes, therapists can tailor intervention to specific cognitive strengths and weaknesses. So, overall, cognitive psychology provides a valuable framework for understanding human cognition and its impact on behavior. It offers practical applications across various domains and has contributed to advancements in education, therapy, technology, and much more. So, here are some key terms and techniques used in cognitive therapy, cognitive psychology. So, I'm talking about cognitive psychology, and what are those key techniques used? So, perception is one. So, one is perception, two is attention, three is memory, four is language, five is problem solving, six is decision making, seven is cognitive assessment, 8 is cognitive behavioral therapy. So these are like perception. So what is perception? Perception refers to the process of interpreting sensory information from the environment, such as visual, auditory stimuli, to create meaningful representations of the world. Techniques used to study perception include visual illusion, perceptions grouping, and the analysis of how individuals perceive and interpret sensory memory. See, for now, I will explain all the cognitive psychology techniques in some other session. So for now, we are only just overviewing what all can be, what all may be the techniques and what all may be the final results or final impact. So because this can't be explained in one session. So cognitive psychology itself is a huge subject, so we can explain it, a bit by bit. We can break it down, and in the next coming sessions as well, I can talk on cognitive psychology techniques more. So for now, one is perception, second is attention. Attention, as we all know, it needs selective focus of the mental resources on the specific stimuli or tasks while filtering out irrelevant information. So this attention can also be, first is perceiving, second is attention, third is memory. See, memory, encoding, storing, and retrieving information. Techniques like recalling, recognizing, etc., and the measures of memory span and capacity also can be, achieved through cognitive psychology. Then language processing is comprehension and production of spoken and written communication. So the techniques include language acquisition studies, and we also see neuroimaging to how the person processes the information, and problem solving and decision making. So, think aloud protocols where individuals verbalize their thought processes while solving problems, and measures of problem solving efficiency. See, when we start, introducing the techniques, the problem solve the the comprehension of a problem and the problem solving strategy changes, and the decision making as well. Decision making also changes, and the cognitive assessment. This cognitive assessment is a measurement and evaluation of cognitive abilities and processes, like your IQ, like the intelligent quotient or the memory quotient. Like this, these assessments also can done: intelligence tests, memory tests, executive function tasks, and as well as computerized cognitive tasks and cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive psychology, while developing, no, afterwards it got developed into cognitive behavioral therapy also. Cognitive behavioral therapy, I have already spoken about this at length in one of my previous sessions. To just recap, for just a recap, CBT is a therapeutic approach that incorporates cognitive psychology principles to treat various mental health conditions. It involves identifying and challenging negative thought patterns and replacing them with more adaptive thoughts and modifying behaviors to improve the psychological well being. So, these are just a few examples of the terms and techniques used in cognitive psychology. So, this field, the cognitive psychology field encompasses of a wide range of research methods, experimental paradigms, and theoretical frameworks to better understand the complexities of human cognition and behavior. If I have to talk about cognitive psychology, it will never end. I think I will come up with this subject in my next session or in the coming sessions. So, I think that's it for today. And thank you if you have stayed tuned till now. And good evening and namaste to all.